My name is Mark Miner. I am an investigative writer and author. In my travels, I've investigated many people and places. Watch as I seek out stories that are typically outside of the box of normal. I am the Seeker. Hi, everybody. So, welcome back to another episode. So, today we're going to be talking about something that has been all over the internet since 2012. And I have been kind of looking at it for all these years, but I kind of didn't really say anything about it because I wanted to look more into it. So, here we go. On May 18th, 1980, a devastating natural disaster created an entirely new landscape across a specific portion of Washington state. We're talking about the eruption of Mount St. Helens, which killed more than 4 dozen people as well as thousands of wild animals. Within the domain of cryptid ape investigations, there are long-standing rumors that the event also took the lives of more than a few Bigfoot species, something which, allegedly, elements of the U.S. government and military sought to keep quiet about. The government's U.S. Geological Survey says of the Mount St. Helens disaster, and I quote, with no immediate precursors, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake occurred at 8:32 a.m. on May 18, 1980, and was accompanied by a rapid series of events. At the same time as the earthquake, the volcano's northern bulge and summit slid away as a huge landslide, the largest debris avalanche on Earth in recorded history. A small, dark, ash-rich eruption plume rose directly from the base of the debris avalanche scarp, and another from the summit crater rose to about 650 feet high. The debris avalanche swept around and up ridges to the north, but most of it turned westward as far as 14 miles down the valley of the North Fork total area and formed a hummocky deposit. The total avalanche volume is 3.3 billion cubic yards, equivalent to 1 million Olympic swimming pools. The landslide removed Mount St. Helens' northern flank, including part of the cryptodome that had grown inside the volcano. Notes the USGS added that, and I quote again, the cryptodome was a very hot and highly pressurized body of magma. Its removal resulted in immediate depressurization of the volcano's magmatic system and triggered powerful eruptions that blasted laterally through the sliding debris and removed the upper, nearly 1,000-foot cone of the mountain. As this lateral blast of hot material overtook the debris avalanche, it accelerated to at least 300 miles per hour. Within a few minutes after onset, an eruption cloud of blast tephra began to rise from the former summit crater. Within less than 15 minutes, it had reached a height of more than 15 miles or 80,000 feet. The lateral blast devastated an area nearly 19 miles from the west to east and more than 12 and a half miles northward from the former summit. In an inner zone extending nearly 6 miles from the summit, virtually no trees remained of what was once dense forest, end quote. And demonstrating the incredible and deadly power unleashed that day, the USGS says, and I quote, over the course of the day, prevailing winds blew 520 million tons of ash eastward across the United States and caused complete darkness in Spokane, Washington, 250 miles from the volcano. Major ash falls occurred as far away as central Montana, and ash fell visibly as far eastward as the Great Plains of the central United States, Kansas, Oklahoma, and the such, more than 930 miles away. The ash cloud spread across the U.S. in 3 days and circled the Earth in 15 days, end quote. That's amazing. I know that's horrible to say that, but that is a huge cataclysmic event. It was huge. It really destroyed a lot of things. I mean that's immense. So sad as it be, I mean it killed a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot because you're thinking hundreds, thousands, but it was a lot of people and all the wildlife. It was just a horrible, horrible, but incredible event. It's both bad and good. You know, so let's get into why we're doing this video. So that is the official story now. Let's take a look at the unofficial story. In many respects, it parallels the claims of U.S. military retrievals of extraterrestrial bodies in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico in the summer 1947. It does. This whole story is going to kind of seem just like that. There are stories that the entire operation to recover possibly 5 or 6 Bigfoot from the pulverized remains of Mount St. Helens was coordinated by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. The USACE, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, excuse me, notes that its role is to, and I quote, deliver vital public and military engineering services, partnering in peace and war to strengthen our nation's security, energize the economy, and reduce risk from disasters, end quote. In other words, the USACE would, indeed, have been the ideal body to have played a central role in the recoveries. So several of the bodies, Bigfoot researchers have been told, were reportedly found on the 105-mile-long Cowlitz Road in the Cascade Mountains. Military Chinook helicopters were said to have been flown into the area and later exited with the corpse of several large, hairy, ape-like animals hanging from powerful nets strung beneath the helicopters. Their destination remains unknown. I mean, wherever they took these things. So, how did this story come to light? Okay, so in 2012, this story surfaced from a former National Guardsman who maintained that he was actually on site when at least some of the Bigfoot recoveries occurred. Under cover of extensive secrecy, incredibly, he claimed that not all of the retrieved Bigfoot were dead. Some were burned and injured, and a few critically so. Particularly outrageous is the claim that the military had assistance from 1 or 2 unharmed Bigfoot that helped guide military personnel to the site where the injured Bigfoot lay. Okay, so let's kind of take all this in and digest it. So Mount St. Helens happens. It's a huge disaster, and of course, our military is going to step in. They're going to go in and see what casualties are there, what damage has been done, and the such. And when they land, they are met with hell on earth. That's the only way I can describe it. I feel for those soldiers that and guardsmen that hit that ground. It would have been overwhelming to me if I was there, and I'm sure it was to them. So here we take I was going to say mythical, but let's not use that word. Here we take a creature that's in cryptozoology that has never been proven to exist. However, there's a huge possibility that this creature, Bigfoot, does exist. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I live in Oregon. And in Washington, Oregon, and California, we believe in Bigfoot so much that we named streets after them. The powers that be, the government here has made them a protected species, which you cannot kill or trap. We have went above and beyond to recognize that this is a legitimate creature, animal, whatever you want to call it. So, but we have never held one in captivity, which would be sad if we did. We've never found a dead body. Just like if you're hiking or going in the mountains, we've never come across a dead body of a Bigfoot. We have never scientifically found one. So when Mount St. Helens goes off and the government and the military and the guardsmen and all them touch down, the story from this guardsman in 2012 states that when they did, two Bigfoot came, so or I'm going to say several Bigfoot, live Bigfoots, approached the military and asked for their help. Okay, stop there. So you're a military group of men. I don't know how else to say that. Say you're on one of these Chinook helicopters and you land to see what devastation has occurred. And you see this rather large, hairy creature walking towards you. I would assume probably with his hands up to show that he's not trying to harm anybody, or I say he, but he, she, whatever. Um, I would assume that's how they approach these men. And the balls on these creatures to do that, oh my lord. Because you have to understand that military probably had some weaponry on them. And I'm sure they turned it on these creatures. If this happened, okay, I say I'm allegedly. Okay, so this is why this part of it's so far-fetched for me. So these Bigfoot walk up to these military personnel and say, help me. Okay, are they able to verbally communicate, or again, are we talking about mentally communicating to each other? I don't know. Were they using hand gestures? I don't know. Somehow or another, they communicated that, hey, we have some injured and dead species of ours laying around. Can you help? So this is a creature that has been hiding out forever, and I'm using that as as a loose term. I mean the Indian culture, I should say that Native Americans, I shouldn't say Indian, the Native American culture has talked about these as mountain men way back, 1600s, 1700s. And so Bigfoot has been around forever. Okay. So they've been elusive and hiding this whole time so well. Okay. That now they're going to come out and be open about it and say, hey, help me, instead of dealing with it themselves. That's why that seems a little far-fetched to me. Okay, so let's go backwards a little bit. So do I believe that this cataclysmic event injured or killed some of the Bigfoot? Oh, of course. Definitely. I mean, a lot of wildlife was killed. And in that wildlife, there is this species. You know, do I believe that Bigfoot exists? Yes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because although we haven't had any kind of specimen to scientifically study and or look at, we have caught so much evidence, especially nowadays with all our technology. There's so much evidence that this species does exist through film, pictures, re- audio recordings, you know, you name it, hair samples, even blood samples, even a few times. And so we do know this species exist. And I'm assuming with this, I'm not assuming, let's put it that way. With what happened with Mount St. Helens, I'm sure quite a few Bigfoot were injured. Here's how I think how it went down. I think what happened was when the military landed to survey the area, they found not only dead humans, but they found dead deer, dead elk, dead, cougars, raccoons, you name it. I'm sure they found a lot of dead wild animals, and they probably stumbled across a few dead Bigfoot. They probably thought it was bears, but once they saw what they were dealing with, that's when I think that their whole what is it called? Like their whole reason why going there kind of changed. So I think they instituted another part of this, and they're like, hey, we got to keep this quiet. We got to keep this quiet until we figure out what we know what's going on. Are these the Bigfoot that we've been hearing about? I mean, oh my God, now we have these bodies, and they can now dissect them, the dead ones, and see what their physiology is and everything, and just kind of just you know get some idea what this species is. But then the guardsman that brought out this story in 2012 said that there were some live ones. And I'm sure that there were some that were burnt. I mean, some humans got burnt as well, trying to run from it. And I'm sure the Bigfoot tried to do the same thing and as well as wild animals. So I'm sure there were some burnt ones, and I'm sure there were some live ones, and I'm sure that they were escorted out of the area because I humans have this tendency to be looky-loos. That's what I call them. So I drive professionally for a living. And when I'm driving and there's an accident or someone's pulled over by the police, you know what I'm talking about. People will slow down and cause traffic jams because they want to see what's going on. Looky-loos. That's just very common with us humans. And so with what happened with Mount St. Helens, a lot of people went into the area to see the devastation. That is so morbid. Why would you do that? Why would you get in the way of rescuers and all these people who are trying to help people who were hurt or lost their property or their lives? Why would you do that? I don't get that. And so I think the reason why the military quickly wrapped up these dead bodies of this Bigfoot and escorted them out of there was because of these looky-loos, these people. And so I don't blame them. The part that I don't get, outside of the whole big two live or how many, two, three, four live Bigfoot talking to the military, I don't get why the military doesn't just come out and say, hey, we have these specimens and they're real. Who would care? Of course, you probably have a lot of people who run into the woods and the forest and try again to look for a Bigfoot. But do you realize on the West Coast how many people do that already? Tons and tons of people. So, anyways, I thought this story was really interesting, and I kind of wanted to bring it to all your guys' attention. Um, so do some research on this and look it up. It's a really interesting story. And I don't know what has happened to this story since it was reported by this guardsman in 2012. I know a lot of people have made videos on this and or used it on their podcast or whatever. And it's a good story. It's a very good story because it allows your imagination to run wild. It allows you to know that there is a possibility. There's a huge possibility that we know for certain that this species is alive and exists. All right. So leave in comments what you guys think. Do you have your own story of Bigfoot? I do. I tell you, I have several. But tell me your stories. Tell me, what you think of, does Bigfoot exist to you? Do you not believe in it? Let me know. I always reply to comments, and I love hearing from you guys. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like these videos. That helps us a lot. And so I'm going to let you go. And remember to stay weird, guys. Okay? And I will see you on the next adventure.